Following pledge allegiance to the flag.
Next agenda item is Commissioner roll call. Stephanie here.
Chair Zato? I can see you here.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Palmero.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jackson Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner McFadden. She's on, right? Commissioner Allman. Here. I'm here. Commissioner Noyola.
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Present.
Commissioner Anderson. Present. Awesome. We have a quorum. And out all the minutes for the previous meeting in March. Hopefully everyone's had time to review them. If so, I need a motion and a second so we can approve them.
Move to approve.
Okay. Yay, Commissioner Noyola made a motion and Commissioner Anderson seconded. All right. let's just get on the- Commissioner Jackson Kelly. Approved.
Approved.
Commissioner Allman, approved. Approved. Commissioner Noyola, approved. Commissioner Gutierrez, approved. Commissioner Anderson, approved. All right, the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 5 is the chairman report. I'll keep it quick. Gov delivery went out on Friday. If you do not have Gov delivery, please send an email to mva@subscriptions.lacounty.gov. I mean, that's where it comes from. I'm sorry, you should email info@mva.lacounty.gov. Still only have 62 subscribers on the YouTube channel. There, Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Noyola, and I were invited to a meeting with SD3 and Metro regarding the art issue that we were briefed on. I think we had a pretty good discussion. We made a lot of our kind of beliefs clear about the artist selection, the process, what Metro can do moving forward, a lot of the risks that they take on by not reevaluating the artists that they use. Basically, the moral injury of veterans that show up for appointments every day at that campus, and some of the trauma that they may feel just showing up at that Metro station. But I think it was a productive meeting. Probably have another meeting, and thanks to the director for helping to support us and get our message out there and coordinating with the board and Metro. One of the last things I want to bring up is the Library of Congress is conducting Asian American and Pacific Islander veteran interviews. They're in Santa Monica, the 19th and 20th, and in Alhambra, the 22nd of May. So if you know Asian American Pacific Islander veterans, please share this information with them. I know the director and MVA have set out kind of the links to sign up. It's important to hear the different stories. And as it is Asian American Pacific Islander Veteran Month, or even just Asian American Pacific Islander Month, I think it's important to kind of hear all the diverse voices of all the veterans that have served. And I know we discussed this last time, but I'll just leave it. But if we want to change the time at this meeting, that's more convenient for others, please let me know. Kind of now that we have more commissioners on board, it's something we can kind of discuss and talk about it if earlier today is a little better, or whatnot, and discuss that as well as talk to the director. All right, next we have agenda item 6, which is a briefing from Dr. Brenda Threat on student veteran homelessness. We have her up on. You're currently muted. Can you hear us, Dr. Thread?
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello? I think you have me muted. Hello, hello? Can you hear me?
Okay. Let's just wait for a minute.
Okay, I
Oh,
am
Commissioner
muted.
Patton?
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, I need to share my, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell whether I was muted or not. Can I share my screen to go through the presentation with you? Because I think you have to give me permission.
Yeah, just 1 second. Brenda,
Okay.
we'll, should now be a presenter.
Okay. See if I can share my screen with you. It's not letting me do it. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here we go. Thank you for allowing me to make this presentation. This is on veteran students living unhoused. The information that we have at our college and many colleges is not complete because veterans do not self-report their homelessness. So it is not specific to any branch. All branches of the service that we know of have students and veterans that are living unhoused. There are approximately 55,000 veterans and active duty service members and dependents who are enrolled in California community colleges each year. And our colleges are designed to educate our students. We give them information about VA education, academic counseling, financial aid, transfer and career, community support, but there is very little information on housing. So this is the Housing and Urban Development chart on point in time veteran homelessness from 2010 to 2022. And as you can see, veteran homelessness has really risen. In 2022, it was recorded that there's a total of 33,136 veterans who are living unhoused. And homeless veterans by state, and this chart is taken from Military Times in 2020. California was reported to have 11,401 veterans living in homelessness. And then California's continuum of care, numbers of unsheltered veterans in 2022 counted 3,456 unsheltered veterans in Los Angeles County. And that is taken from HUB. Urban Initiatives. You all may know this, but the categories of homelessness are three. The first one is literally homeless, and that's an individual or family who doesn't have a fixed, regular, adequate place to live, to stay at night, or they're living in a publicly or privately operated shelter, or they're living in a place not meant for human habitation. Category three is imminent risk of homelessness. And a lot of our students fall into this category. They will be losing their housing in 14 days if they don't get income. They have no subsequent residence that's been identified, and the individual or family lacks the resources or support networks needed to obtain permanent housing. And then the last category is specifically to transitional age youth and unaccompanied minors. and their conditions of homelessness. To the veteran students, homelessness looks like shame, failure, alienation, and helplessness. And consequently, they are reticent to report their homeless status. And homelessness versus housing instability, that's a designation by HUD. People experiencing housing instability are not necessarily experiencing literal homelessness. However, it is just as traumatic, particularly to the veteran. Housing instability is defined as not being able to pay your rent, risking eviction, and frequent moves. And it includes having stays in hotels and motels, doubling up. And we have a lot of students that are doing that, and also using their personal vehicles in garages and or living in transitional or temporary shelters. The psychological effects of living unhoused, and we all know that, is depression, post-traumatic stress plays into it, anxiety disorders, panic attacks, paranoia, and ultimately suicide attempts. When all of those things are burdening a student or a veteran, it is overwhelming and hopeless. And other effects of living unhoused, and this is taken from CDC, short-term effects, limited access to healthcare, problems getting enough food, trouble staying safe, violence, stress, unsanitary living conditions, and exposure to severe weather. This was taken from one of our students at El Camino College in 2022, and her name is Kim McGill, and she talked about living in her car. I won't read the whole thing, but what she was saying was how she felt unsafe, but she felt, because she was a white person, that she was more safe than students of color living in their cars or on the street. And the data that we have here for us, our 2023 enrollment for spring of 2023 is about 18,000 students. And we recorded that 13% of those students are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurities, which is about 2,340 students. We have 600 veteran students. 250 of those students are veterans and or dependents who are using benefits. So about 78%, if we use the formula of 13%, 78% of those students are housing insecure. And this is a study by the RAND Corporation on unhoused veterans in Los Angeles that suggests that services need to be tailored to meet the population needs and preferences. The project was led by RAND, and the University of Southern California found that veterans wanted to get off the street, and the housing options available to them frequently did not meet their desire for autonomy, safety, security, and privacy. And there is a quote by Sarah Hunter that states, "Veterans are a priority population who generally have access to services, but few of those we followed found permanent housing. The study demonstrates how difficult it can be for people who are unhoused to navigate the system and find suitable housing." And at the time of the study, the VA outreach team consisted of 5 people who served Los Angeles County and parts of other adjacent counties. Although the VA has recently announced it will increase its staff, the current estimate of veterans experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles County is 3,902. And we are looking at this, all the community colleges, I'm assuming all the colleges are looking at steps to housing veterans. And that would be to incorporate housing into the menu of basic needs, to provide dedicated veteran case managers and mental health support and housing navigators, to work more collaboratively with housing providers and support agencies, to acquire housing for veteran students and or shelter pending permanent housing, and to advocate for veterans and family housing on the state and national level. And when we do that, this is what we get. We will get veteran students who are able to successfully navigate the education system, graduate, and have a life that we all think our veterans deserve to have. And that concludes my presentation. I will stop sharing and turn it back over to whoever is taking control of the system, and I will answer any questions if there are any, or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thread.
Commissioners, are there any questions?
Yeah, Dr. Turk, this is Commissioner Gutierrez from the 5th District. Would it be possible for you to drop your slides into the chat? for us to
Sure.
see?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Hi, Brenda. It's good to hear from you, and thanks for giving that presentation on student veteran homelessness. You know, initially, a few months ago, when we tried to get this on the agenda, and we sort of talked about the need, do you feel like there's enough data, enough research on this topic, specifically student veteran homelessness?
No, I do not. One of the main barriers is that homeless students that are experiencing homelessness don't report. We find out usually through a conversation or from one veteran to another, or when a veteran is really in dire straits and needing assistance. So we are working with our Veterans Club for them to work more closely with VPAN and other peer navigators to get veterans to come into our center and to do some more comprehensive documenting and data on veteran homelessness. And all of we're part of of the California Community Colleges, and the other colleges in the district are also doing the same thing. But that's probably the most difficulty that we have, is making sure that we know who is experiencing homelessness. I don't know if the VA is doing an effort along with the California Community Colleges, other than what they've presented so far. But I think we need to dig in a little deeper and to have more visibility on campuses about veteran homelessness. One of the misnomers is that veteran students, particularly students that are using their benefits, that their benefits cover everything, and they do not cover everything. That, you know, they're privileged because they have benefits for the VA, but housing, as we all know, in Los Angeles County is very expensive, and the students are struggling. And fortunately, some of them get to live with one another. We are finding that there are veterans living in their car, and yeah, none of that is acceptable. And veterans not being able to, they can't even do their homework. You know, they're using their cell phones to write a paper because they don't have access. And it's just really—
Just a quick follow-up on that point. Approximately 16 California community colleges have residence halls. Are any of the community colleges in LA County that you're aware of, do they have student housing?
No, that I'm aware of, don't. El Camino did apply for a grant to do housing, and we were not successful. What we are doing now is applying for a 24-hour safe parking grant through LAHSA, so that we can at least designate a portion of our parking lot to the students that are living in their cars, so that they can be safe. But there is not enough of a push to provide housing for community colleges. And I'm not at that level. Our president and some of our vice presidents have been involved in that effort. But if community colleges could have housing or have access to a housing provider, it would be a solution.
And I could talk about this someday. I really appreciate you coming out and discussing this issue with us. Chair, I think Commissioner today called.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sorry. It was kind of garbled. I couldn't hear you.
Dr. Thread, Commissioner Right. Occidental Valley Community College liaison with a couple of large service nonprofits. One is the Military Resource Center for Mental Health America, Los Angeles, and the other is a regional nonprofit called Veteran Veterans. And both of them try to get student veterans back to housing solutions. Is our experience isolated, or are there other needs in centers across Los Angeles County that I also know VPAN tries to coordinate on this as well. But like across the rest of Los Angeles County.
So no, it's not isolated. It's not specific to Los Angeles County, or even to California.
No, my question is, does Los Angeles County Community College somebody supervise?
I'm sorry, you faded out.
Have, dedicated resource efforts to get their student veterans matched to housing.
Are Los Angeles County colleges equipped to get their students?
Yeah, do they have dedicated counseling and rural resources to try and match?
Can you type that? 'Cause I'm sorry, I can't hear. And I'm just now seeing the chat. Did you all not, you weren't able to see the slides?
No, ma'am, that's what we have, if you would drop them in there.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can do that. I'll finish answering other questions and then I'll put it into the chat. Are there any other questions? No.
Thank you, Dr. Threat. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you for allowing me to make that presentation.
All right, agenda item 7. We've got a briefing from Mr. Crowder and Cope Notes. Is Mr. Crowder online?
Hello. Just making sure everyone can hear my voice.
Yep, we can hear you, Mr. Crowder. Welcome to the commission meeting. We've got 10 minutes for you to do your briefing, and so time begins whenever you want.
Thank you very much. I will share this screen. Please let me know if you can see this, and more importantly, that the slides are changing when I go from right to left. Are those changing? Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. I know I met with some of you individually when I was in LA, so I'm happy to meet the rest of you. My name is Johnny Crowder, and I'm the founder and CEO of Cope Notes. And I think importantly, I want to start by saying that the reason that I work in mental health is because I grew up with severe mental illness and I was resistant to all treatment. So I was not interested in therapy or medication. Basically, even at the word depression or anxiety, I would run away, all but run away. And I began treatment in my teenage years. I eventually went to school for psychology, and I'm now a certified recovery peer specialist. I've been working in the mental health field for over a decade now. And really, I think that context is important because the peer support component of what we do at Cope Notes is critical. But from a very high level, just so you have some context around who we are and what we do, we send randomly timed text messages that interrupt negative thought patterns and train the brain to think in healthier patterns. And I'll explain a little bit about why we do it that way. I don't have to spend much time on this slide, judging by some of the conversation that I've had with some of you. You're already well aware of some of the mental health challenges that your folks are facing, but I think often what we've said to people is reach out if you're experiencing something challenging. And the fact is most people simply don't do that. It sounds nice to tell people to do that, but most people won't. And a lot of people are suffering in silence because the lift of therapy, the lift of medication, the lift of engaging with care seems very intimidating to a lot of people. Providers are really overwhelmed. I don't have to belabor that point with all of you. And really, we've been neglecting prevention for a long time as a society. And I think it's Much like we all brush our teeth and floss every single day, whether we have cavities or not, whether we drink coffee or not, it's that small thing that each of us do on a regular basis to improve our preventative dental health. I think we can do exactly that for our brains. In fact, it would be foolish not to. So one thing I want to make clear is that CopeNotes serves both diagnosed and undiagnosed individuals. You do not have to have even moderate to severe symptoms. You could literally have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all and still experience positive health outcomes, which I'll touch on in a couple of slides from now. And we get this question a lot, so I want to clarify, CopeNotes is not an app. There's nothing to download. You don't have to remember passwords or login information. We do not collect any personal data, so we're not collecting names or health information, diagnoses. It's completely anonymous. And the reason why we chose SMS, just plain text messaging, as our medium, in addition to all the ones I just mentioned, were, first of all, it is 50 times more likely that you will open a text message than an app notification. So in terms of engagement, it is second to none. Also, 97% of American adults prefer text messaging to any other communication method. So it's not just millennials or younger generations, it's actually across the board. And it's also true for youth, but I think this equity component is especially important in a community like LA County. There are tens of millions of Americans who face bias in care, who use non-smart cell phones and can't download app-based support. So we really wanted to focus on accessibility and make sure that you didn't need a shiny new iPhone 14 in order to access a digital health resource. Now, as far as how CopeNotes works, I'll try to keep this page pretty short and sweet to respect everyone's time, but I could certainly talk for a long time about it. All of the messages that we send are written by peers with lived experience. So every single text message is written from the perspective of someone with firsthand understanding of how what they're writing about affects their own life and the lives of others. And you might be wondering, well, what is the content based on? And each message, whether it's an exercise, a journaling prompt, a psychology fact, it's all health education content. So we're not texting people smile or I hope you have a good day. We're texting them real health education content based on proven psychological principles reviewed by clinicians. But I think importantly, that peer part balances it out because these messages are not complex. They're not long. They're not full of jargon. They're very easy to understand. And we actually deliver these messages, like I mentioned, at random times so that no two people ever get the same text message at the same time. You never know when we will text you or what the text will say. And these randomly timed interruptions actually train the brain to think in healthier patterns, which I'll touch on in this very next slide. And then people can text back at any time to speak freely and journal, to say whatever they want, whenever they want. And just like a physical journal, it will not report them to anybody. It will not share or publish anything they journal. The only thing we do is escalate. If someone is in a situation of crisis, we can escalate that. But outside of that, this is their private, confidential journal for them to speak freely inside of. And the reason why people feel comfortable using this resource this way is because, like I mentioned before, it's 100% anonymous and confidential. On this page, now I've given 2 TED Talks. My first one was actually about the neuroscience behind CopeNotes. So this is not an idea that I was genius enough to come up with. This is built on proven psychology. There is decades of research around what's called ecological momentary intervention, or EMI. And basically, what we're doing is using these text messages as interruptions to negative thought patterns, and the brain over time adapts to form new neural pathways associated with positive thoughts. So I did mention the peer support component. I mentioned the health education component, but this page talks more to the brain training and neuroplasticity side of what we do, which is really where we're seeing the positive health outcomes take root. Really, we are helping people form new thought patterns and new habits associated with coping skills and resilience. And I think importantly, at the top right, you'll see that this is a set it and forget it mental health resource, which is which means rather than hoping that you will reach out to us when you go through a challenge, which we already know that most people won't, instead, we reach out once per day at a random time, guaranteed. We are that consistent voice of support, driving engagement with health education content, teaching people how to form healthier thought patterns and habits. And then this last page that I'll share, because I see I'm very close to time. We've been around we're in our 6th year of operation. We've served now over 150 different enterprise level partners, many of which I'm sure you've heard of. Importantly, I think on the data side, if anyone here is wondering what the evidence base is, we've done qualitative and quantitative studies with the University of South Florida. The most recent quantitative study was published in the Journal of Mental Health about a month ago. It's very exciting for us. And importantly, on the left, you'll see that for people living with moderate to severe depression, anxiety, and stress, these participants saw statistically significant decreases in these symptoms faster than therapy. So this was inside of 30 days, only interacting with Cope Notes for about 10 seconds per day. So it's a very small time commitment, almost no data commitment. So that's important to mention for the people in the moderate to severe symptom range. But I think where I want to end is the fact that people in the mild to moderate range, so people who are undiagnosed, people who maybe wouldn't even self-elect or self-identify as someone who could benefit from a mental health resource, saw in this study in the Journal of Mental Health, saw improved emotional intelligence, resilience, and coping skills. So in the interest of keeping my time sharing to an absolute minimum, I'll advance to this last slide, and there's some contact info there. I'd love to answer a question or two if we have any time.
Thanks, Mr. Crowder. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I have a question. The text messages that are the responses from individuals using the platform, is it going to a bot? Or, because I see the response kind of swaying here, but the respondents are also responding back that are more than just journal information that they can, put out their thoughts.
Yes, so the text library is written by, you can picture it like this. We have a text library that was created by peers with lived experience, and all of that is a health education content. And then people can journal back and speak freely. So sometimes people will text back once a week, once per day, 70 times per day. And we make it very clear that when you text us back, it's not a real-time conversation with a crisis counselor or anything like that. This is your safe space to speak freely and say whatever you want, whenever you want.
Okay. Sure. So my question is, how do you know if you have a situation that involves safety or escalation?
So we use natural language processing to determine whether or not someone is in a position where escalation would be fruitful for them, and then our system will automatically direct them to the appropriate resource. So to clarify on that, most typically we work with 988 for escalation, but we have a few dozen city and county government contracts all over the country, and sometimes one of those contracts will stipulate that they want to make sure that the escalation goes to a more local resource, and that is also possible. So 988 is normally who we work with, but for a county contract, if they have a specific request around how we route the escalation, we can certainly accommodate that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Crowder. Appreciate your time and briefing us.
Thank you very much for allowing me to do so.
All right, the next agenda item, number 8, is public comments. We've got 5 public comments right now. Mr. Hendon, is he online? Need Mr. Hendon online. We'll circle back and see if he shows up later. The next public commenter is Mr. Ortiz. So you have 3 minutes. I'll start the timer whenever you begin.
Thank you. My name is Dan Ortiz. I am a past commissioner. I was appointed by Jim Molina, who just passed away. So I just want to mention that. I want to welcome our new commissioners, welcome on board. Great to see everybody in person again. Got a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Recently, I was in Pico Rivera. The city of Pico Rivera recently created a Veterans Advisory Commission. Only took 5 years to do it, but that's another story. A great report from your CVSO there, Kenny Gonzalez gave a great report at that. But the thing I want to talk about is that they were presented with the choice, and they were told, what day do you want to celebrate Veterans Day on? Because this year falls on a Saturday, and we have trouble getting speakers to come to our events. So we can either have it Friday or we can have it that Monday. And these commissioners were brand new, 3 commissioners, first vote that they're being faced with. Listen, why not have it on Veterans Day itself? Okay, do we celebrate Christmas any other day in the 24th and 25th? No. Valentine's Day, we don't celebrate on the 17th, it's always on the 14th. Veterans Day, if you're, I hope you're all aware, it was Armistice Day. 11th hour, 11th day of the 11th month. There's significance there. It's historical. That's the day our government chose to honor our veterans. City of Pico Rivera is not doing it. Bring that to your attention. So there's some of the cities within our county are probably going to be faced with that same dilemma. And do we want to pay our city staff to work on a weekend that the city employees want to work on? Metro, I want to say some of us are still listening, and I haven't seen anything yet about a listening session regarding the group selection. I see that we have an event. Metro's moving forward with what they're doing, but have they heard us out? Have they listened to the veterans? Yes, some of us are still listening. VPAN. I just want to say a few words about VPAN. I know it's. I love what you guys are doing. Great job, great ideas. I support you guys 100%. Let's keep it in LA. Here, LA County, VPAN. Check the map, that's Orange County. So can we keep VPAN in LA County? I'm sure LA County has, oh.
Sir, your time is up.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz.
thank you.
The next speaker we have is Mr. Ramirez.
Mr. Ramirez, is he online?
Rainey online. Mr. Rainey. Okay. Let's go to Mr. Chung. Welcome, Mr. Chung. I'll start the time. You have 3 minutes whenever you begin. Thank you.
also to make it further, it depends, first of all, like, the developer, democratic. Identification card, before the peace and service and sacrifice the condition of our forgiveness. We will not be any one of them treated and recognized as veterans of the Vietnam War. This is to clear the stand of young before us. To be honest, we are already living in the twilight of our lives. Before we die, our sacrifice and merit must be acknowledged. Station in Vietnam War. We are American, and this is historical fact that they are more than nine. The cost of issuing Allied veterans put ID card for free. So in Vietnam War would have more measurable impact on Los Angeles County. I think very minimalized expense. America may not agree on the need for army to be, but they do not agree. But they do agree that this result should be expected and rewarded. Also send global message that every county will remember and care for these to fight alongside the band. It is our honest hope that every county governments and the bodies will step up and help us with leadership to make our request come true.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. We see Mr. Hendon, Mr. Ramirez, or Mr. Rainey online. All right, next agenda item is bylaws amendment. I believe, well, I don't know if the new commissioner saw it, but we had some changes to the bylaws, primarily, it seems simple, but allowing public comment in person, people can, not right now, the process is you have to sign up before the meeting. But we're just basically adding verbiage so that if you're here in person and we have time and you want to sign up. So that's in Article 6, and in Article 7, it also applies to special meetings that we call. And then the other big change is in Article 8. When we make recommendations to the board of supervisors, instead of having me send it forward, we will have the secretary send forth the recommendations. So I know there's some other discussion. I'm going to turn it over to the vice to discuss some of his concerns.
Thank you, Chair. We, as the commission, did have some discussions about the bylaws, and also I think some of us commissioners had discussions with us. First is the issue of quorum. I still am not clear as to what exactly a quorum represents when there are less than 10 commissioners. And I have requested that that the staff provide the commission with the originating legislation that commission to see how many original seats actually were called for, and if there's any language that originated this commission that suggests that any time that could, in essence, change seats. Also understand that county legal may have provided some written advice as to, or interpretation as to what a quorum is. I have yet to see that, and I think the commission should be able to see what that legal advice is. I don't believe, given what I was told, that it said that it may or may not actually be in terms of how to determine what a quorum is. Second thing that I wanted to bring up is under Article 4, Item D. Seems to be that this may or may not have been the process perhaps that was put into place during COVID, when there was no public ability to come in and make comments. If that's not the case, I do know that typically on public bodies, when they have meetings, that we have public comment, that anybody should be able to come in if they're sitting in the public, fill out a card or whatever the administrative process is, and make comments at that meeting on whatever's on that agenda. And if that's the case, I'm not sure what the purpose this serves, that they must fill out the information what they want to talk about 24 hours ahead of time. So it almost seems like we're implying by the bylaws that they can come to the meeting and make those comments. So maybe perhaps some level of clarity on that one.
Can we just discuss that
Sure.
further? Is we have two new commissioners who, these bylaws were developed during the COVID era where everything was virtual. So, we are adapting what we had going on in the COVID environment so that people who attend in person are able to provide public comment. Because right now we're dealing with a hybrid setting where theoretically we have people who are watching us online who are only going to public comment through online means. And we have members here who came in and signed up, right? So how do we structure it so that the process allows for both? We can't allow, in my opinion, just saying, well, you have to show up in person to provide public comment leaves out the virtual audience. So what I think is the compromise is that when the notice of meeting goes out, there's a link to register for public comment. And then if you want, you can sign up for public comment at that time. If you want to attend virtually, you can do that. If you want to come in person, you can do that as well. You have the option. But we know from our agendas, we have about 30 minutes generally for public comment, right? 3 minutes per speaker. We're really maxed out at 10. So if 7 people register in advance, then really we have 3 spots available. So the first 3 people who show up and provide the secretary with a public registration card have the opportunity to speak. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah, I think the point that I was trying to make is that registering 24 hours ahead of time, whether it's because you're doing it virtually or whether you're doing it in person, seems to be limiting and goes against the ability of someone that wants to make a public comment to do so. Technology allows us, whether you're using Zoom or you're using Teams, that you could raise your hand if you have a public comment.
That would be, I believe that would be chaotic,
Well,
in my opinion.
and could very well be, but the public has the right, regardless of the medium, to come forward to the board at the time the board meets. Get the information about a meeting until like the day of.
Yeah.
And so we have to have, if we're going to allow someone to come into a meeting, sign up right then and there to make a comment or in public comment, we should have the same level of access for those that are online. So in essence, what I'm saying is really the limiting factor for us is the amount of time that we set aside for public comment, regardless of whether it's in person or whether it's via the medium like Zoom and Teams. So registering ahead of time, that's fine. It helps us, but it really doesn't help necessarily the public that wants to have access to the machine. And so my thought here is they can register for either or, but if they don't register and they still want to speak and we still have time to allow for public comment, then we should do so.
So really the issue is not the sign up. The issue is, well, so moving forward, we should have a sign up period as it is. That's the way we've always done it. And then we can also check virtually to see if there are any people. public comment.
So we should amend for the third category.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brooks.
Public comment. The commission can take no action on any public comment. That's, and everybody understands that, but sometimes it's not written out.
There's no interaction.
There's no interaction. Public comment.
The final sentence of item D reads, commissioners may not respond to public comments during the public comment period. It's on the second, it's on the other page.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Need to, looks like we need to amend, the public comment stuff. I guess my only question is, do we still vote on the other, or do we want to make the,
I would-
agree on the amendment now? Change to the, I'm sorry, the change to the.
I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I would suggest let's make the edits and maybe adopt new bylaws next month. I mean, I don't think it's
Okay.
So, one more thing on public comment. County can come and address this confusion.
we only have 90 minutes.
I understand, that. I saw them making it,
Yeah.
but if possible, we'll know within.
I mean, there's nothing that says we can't have more. If we know that there's gonna be, if we've got, you know, and that's part of the reason why we have people sign up. I mean, this is just a issue that's very hot. We've had issues before. And if we need to, you know, if we feel the need to provide some more, dedicate more time, I think that that's a perfectly reasonable thing to shift. So we don't have, there's nothing limiting our public comment.
The chair always has the,
The actual, I don't think there's actually anything that limits the number of.
the chair has discretion to set the agenda. If the chair wants to have, 79 minutes of a 90-minute meeting be public comment, that's at his or her discretion.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's a necessary thing we need to. Commissioner McFadden, I'm sorry.
So the item.
I think we're gonna adjust because now, based on advice about checking to see if there are also virtual people that want to give public comment at the last minute. We'll adjust it and send it back out for the commissioners.
So this one says. The chairperson may come. In person on the day. So to. Doesn't. I don't, I mean, this is public. If somebody says they want to make a public comment in person or on the day of. The regular meeting, that's addressed in this adjusted here.
Yeah, I think selecting people based on raising your hand in Microsoft Teams is asking for chaos. I don't think it's an orderly way to conduct business. That's my opinion. But, you know, obviously this is why we have commission, right? We've discussed these things. I mean, that's.
Excuse me.
Commissioner.
My question is, if they need to complete the form, right? Okay, so how would the people virtually complete the form?
The link at the beginning of the meeting, and who's monitoring the link during the meeting.
Right, so
We could do those.
as the past chair, the reason why there is a 24-hour delay is because it takes quite a bit of time to actually get the list.
Right,
It's not instantaneous,
right.
as most people like to think. It's not just, you snap your fingers and you have the list. So that's why I suggested the 24-hour period in the initial bylaws. It's just the mechanics of creating an orderly process. But that's, again, my opinion.
One thing we can talk, me and the vice, we can talk to the director about what opportunities there are to include as many members of the public as possible while following. I guess for now, we'll table the bylaw amendment till the next meeting, and we'll get you all updates as once we get feedback and stuff like that regarding making sure we have a fair protocol for the public to share at each meeting.
You can get a motion to table.
Sure. Sorry, the vice.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that earlier on in this meeting, the discussion, there was a quick comment about changing the timing of the meeting. If you notice in the proposed bylaws, it does suggest a new time. So for current commissioners as well as the new commissioners, perhaps if you could make sure that you let the director know whether or not that fits, you believe that would work for us. I believe it's under, it's items, is it 6A? Where it talks about from 1:30 versus 90, and run no more than 90. So if there's another time, and I know that Chair, you recall the discussion that maybe the same day would be Wednesdays, but potentially 9:30 is what I recall from the previous meetings, for us to consider.
We could just strike the time. For the purposes of the bylaw discussion, we could just strike the time and that could just be at the discretion. There. It doesn't need to say every month at 1:30 p.m. It could just say regular meetings shall occur on the third Wednesday and run no more than 90 minutes in length.
I second. All right. The amendment, bylaw amendment is tabled. And Commissioner Noel second. All right, agenda item 10. Department report for presenter.
Very productive commission. So you guys are put that in. The sound was good once we did get it up and going and visuals.
For external. I think our total list, we had 31 total candidates, so we're working through that list. And then lastly, we have a veteran fund assistant 3 that will be able to come on July 1 as well. One is entry level. They do not need to be accredited when they come on board. But shortly after they come on board, we get them through the accreditation academy that's put on the campus. Two is more hands-on with accredited rep. They were located as West LABA's for care center up in Palmdale or in the vet center. But basically, at this level, vet rep should be able to practice independently. Able to provide mentorship to other veteran assistants. While they don't have a formal supervisory role traditionally, we've asked in the department, with the absence of one of our supervisors, we can decided to have the former staff later. Structuring in the department. I think we talked a little bit about this. I talked a little bit about this a couple of months ago. All the administrative positions have been put underneath very much in priority for us. Talk about the significant, especially mental health services. traditionally not done on the federal side. Very limited, going after state funding. And so I put on their need, put on the radar and repeatedly what we need to support on the grant, applying for grants, technical assistance, things like that. And so in addition to working with Senate Strategic Partnership with the CEO's office, we are going to meet as sanctioned by LA County with LA INSYNC. It's an organization that typically drives a lot of grant writing and specifically to draw down state and federal dollars to compare local economies to increase funding to. Service members here. A lot of it was just service providers, good opportunity to connect. Unfortunately, I was in DC at the time, but from what I heard, for building and for the 10 or so transition service members, they sent out 1,305 letters to transitioning service members whose family record was like. That was our initial try. We get about 90% of the service members, and we get their phone numbers as well. So future. Level. Where the VA and county are showing up hand in hand, offering veteran services to the cities. Report back that I work with CEO to submit for approval basically outlines a plan where we consolidate all county services. And offer to establish veteran resources, much like Pico Rivera, some of the other cities have engaged on. biggest takeaway, exciting takeaway from our programs at the VA was they have committed to a housing navigator through their SSVF program. Anybody that's ever tried to get somebody housed, electric housed, knows that that's some serious red tape. Development, this then to allow Los Angeles County and City to be the county city planner. It's a public-private partnership. They have $3 billion funding. So Metro reached out to me and so I could offer some advice. So Joe was very much appreciated. One thing to note for the Metro side is Metro stating the latest event. I'd already heard it from social media. Thank you to the staff. I set the bar very high.
Thank you, Director. Does anyone have any questions for the Director?
I'm just curious. When you were talking about, going back from the top, were you gonna get a PAL type position?
Director, you mentioned the reorganization of the department. Is that, I remember, living in the barracks, you go into the headquarters office, you see the org chart. And I think we should implement that for the department, maybe on the website. So the About Us section has obviously your background, but you're the only supervisor or executive that's on that. Do you think we can get maybe not every person in the department? Because obviously that whole chart would be a little wild, but maybe like the supervisory staff. Is that something that you think is worthwhile? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. So part of the reorg is also on their staff with the pictures and locations for the
Great. Anyone? Okay, thank you, Director. Agenda item 11, items for future meetings. We've got a list of a few items. Are there any other topics that we want to bring up? I know I'm going to prioritize. We brought up previous meetings, all the veteran legislations that's at state right now. So I'd like to prioritize briefing, some kind of legislative briefing, so we can make a recommendation regarding. Yep. But is there any other?
Yes. They have new women's veteran representative at West LA. In the American Legion has it does an excellent job with that.
Yes, thank you. Recently, an issue had come up that I received some input from some veterans, and it has to do with providing a timely and adequate health care to our veterans. So approximately 2 years ago, there was a recall of a device from the manufacturer Philips, and it's a device that people that have issues with sleep apnea require this machine in order to be able to breathe and rest at night, I guess. There are a number of veterans that apparently have not received this device after it's been recalled. The VA, after issuing that, and I guess providing some sort of direction, after 2 years since the recall started, there's still a number of veterans that do not have that machine. And I'm a little concerned that when a provider, a physician, say, in order to deal with your, issue that, here's what treatments required, and the VA has yet to issue assessment after 2 years, something doesn't seem right. And I would ask that this commission consider asking the VA here in the county or wherever we need to go to provide a briefing to this commission as to how the VA is dealing with providing or not providing the appropriate health care to our veterans here in the county. That's it.
Any other agenda items, commissioners?
I would like to add the Department of Economic Opportunity. There's a current RFP for the modernization of the AJCC. I think that would be worthwhile if there's a veteran-specific component to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Allman. Okay, last agenda item, good of the order. Item 12, we'll start with Commissioner Crooks. Anything to present to the board at this time?
And so consequently, get the board back up this far because we have a decent forum. And having nobody fly. Apparently, a whole bunch of people I know will fly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Palmero. Commissioner McFadden. Commissioner Jackson Kelly.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I did attend in Virginia. It was an amazing to speak with Admiral Howard. Lieutenant General Gregg, who the base was named after, leader of the 688. Lieutenant General Gregg spoke at the event, and he's in his late 90s and very vibrant and very sharp. So we visit the museum as well, which is very interesting, and we visit the future home of the 688.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice, anything else?
Yes, two things. First, welcome aboard, new commissioners, and looking forward to your input. And secondly, I would like to say to both the director as well as to the employees, awesome job. Every time I come here, I'm in awe, not only of just the facility itself, but also the work that I see. So thank you so very much for your ongoing service.
Commissioner Allman.
Just an update that on May 2nd, buildings 205 and 208 opened at VA West Los Angeles. It's 120 units of permanent supportive housing for formerly homeless veterans. That concludes phase 0 of the master plan. So there's currently 233 units available on the campus. 205 and 208 are in the process of lease up, so they're not fully occupied yet, but there are 233 homes on that campus now. There are currently 3 parcels in development, and 4 will be released to developers throughout this year. So theoretically, by the end of 2025, there's going to be an additional 535 units on the campus. So a long time coming, but these units are happening. Yeah, I'm pretty excited by that. And one thing to add. In February, VA committed approximately $380 million for the campus development. So, I will not stop talking about that because it's a significant amount of money. And I give VA credit for that, especially the secretary for making that a priority. The last thing I'll mention is the Asian American Pacific Islander oral history event. I think it's been discussed earlier, but that's going to be on the 19th and 20th. I believe the department put out information. So check the social media for that. And then for SD3 specifically, there's going to be an event with Metro Art that's going to be held on the VA West LA campus. The deadline to register is May 19th. I believe the event's on the 23rd. And I know the department put out information through the newsletter as well. So appreciate the department for distributing the information. And for the OWL, I don't think people online can see, but we have a fancy 360 camera now. And I think we're going to keep getting better and better.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, actually, I have two things continuing. Some confidence see the work of the district too. I want to thank our citizen friends, brothers, and comrades, Korean Ally opponent. Thank you and render respect. Tours of the Antelope Valley, his name was Mr. Jin Ver. His brother Young Ver was a major in the medical services. I think the card is less of a climb than what might be some other discussion on extension of benefits and recognition. But I'd like to see it happen. Get behind it. There also were Filipino American and some other allied groups, but Republic of Korea was substantial and valorous. The other was with what Commissioner Jackson Kelly had to offer. Had the opportunity to go on what they call the honor flight last month to Washington, D.C. and escort a 90-year-old Korean war. We flew. Honor Flight is a large and robust national nonprofit network. We probably have about 4 or 5 of them here in Southern California. Mine was the Honor Flight Kern County. But what they do is with volunteers and a donor base, they send veterans. World War II were the primaries, but most of them are gone now. Maybe a few. But to follow Korea and Vietnam War service. So this is a all expense 72-hour speed dating, putting to see their nation's armed services memorials and to have recognition ceremonies of their own capitals to be greeted in the Congress. It was pretty inspiring, but if you have contact with your own veterans of any era of service, Vietnam, who haven't experienced this, you can probably Google an honor flight near me, and you can help get them signed up. You can go yourself as a volunteer, but it's 72 hours that my veteran says it was the greatest experience of his lifetime. So I'll take that. That's mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gutierrez. Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah,
my brain's not working.
Yeah, just
Commissioner
a
Gutierrez.
quick reminder about the 25th annual tribute to veterans and military families being held this month on the 27th. It's really one of those events that I look forward to attending every year. A lot of resources, so please come on out to that. And then a shout out to the Community Veteran Justice Project for holding a really good event this morning here in the building. A lot of good information was passed, so thank you for them for having that. And then again, to you gentlemen, thank you for your service and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. I'll echo that City of Torrance is going to have the Armed Forces Parade again this year. So I think it's the 20th, but they'll have events the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, and the last thing I want to add is Congratulations to Commissioner McFadden. She's retiring, 25 years of service. And so that's it. I just want to use the gavel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Jackson Kelly.
Speaking of parades,
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. There you go, buddy.
Commissioners and directors,
Real quick.
we have cake to celebrate Commissioner Captain McFadden's retirement.